watched this film today on the go, and I was telling Jason I was like in the post office. I had headphones on. I had no idea where this movie was going, and like right out of the gate, I was like, "Oh my god!" And everybody wherever I was all day was like extremely worried about me because the movie has so many twists and turns and is so emotional. Like I don't know if I've seen like a film with this much like genre gunplay that is like so emotional. Like everyone is like crying and everyone is like really relatable. And to me, that's a testament to the wonderful ensemble.
Yes, absolutely.
And the work that you all did. So let me start by saying, how did you all come to this project?
Well, Wes and we did a movie called Call Her King together, and he was like, I wrote this movie and you were on my wish list for it. I was like, what? I don't even have to see the script. Like, you know what I mean? When somebody tells you that, because you never think you're going to get to that point ever in life where somebody's like,
Wish
I'm
list.
writing this with Jason Mitchell in mind. Like, where they do that at? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he ended up finishing up the script and he sent it to me and I was like, this is better than I thought it could be.
Right.
And I was like, who you think about for King David? And he was like, I think NLE Choppa. And I'm like, I think you might be right. You know what I mean? So, yeah, man, we got to give credit to Wes for that for sure.
Yeah, brilliant casting. Yeah. NLE, like you were painting and you had like crazy, incredible jacket on and you were like a poet and you were like so scary. Like it was such a villain. Like, how did you come to the project?
First and foremost, how everybody doing today? How y'all doing? Man, I came into it as a father. So, I think even though the role I played, it was like the villain, it was the bad guy. But I feel like as a father, when it's coming into fatherhood, those are things we have to watch out for.
Yeah.
We always want the good, but, we try to run away from the bad. But I think, it needs to be a point in time where if you're stepping into fatherhood, we need to be more aware of the bad than the good at times.
Right.
So I think that was like my approach to it, just knowing that my character was the villain, and I wanted to play it as well as I can for the overall gist, which is to protect our kids.
You did such a great job. And for some reason, like I felt for you as well. Like I felt for everyone in the film. And it was such a unique take on like that character. Like it was just different. You're like I'm like, why he's painting somebody? Like what the hell's going on?
And it's funny you say that you felt for the character. I think the most important part, the whole gist of this movie is about fatherhood, motherhood. I feel like, let King David had the type of parents that Dream Doll and Jason was. If they had that type of nourishment, that type of care, that type of, relentless, nonstop when the roadblocks is in the way, fucking, I'm going to go around it to make sure my seed is good.
Right.
Maybe King David's story would have been different in this movie,
Right. Dog could have been Vincent Van Gogh with both ears.
Yeah. Garrett, how did you come to this project?
Andrew and Wes called me up and said, hey, you want to play this? And I said, sure. Just pretty much the same thing as Jason. It was an honor, like it was an offer. And so when I read the script and I'm looking at the character, I was like, oh, this is outside my normal wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So it was, I was scared at first.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember reading something that some actor had always said, which was that if it scares you, you should do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's the fear of that role that makes you go harder.
Yeah.
And then, man, I didn't know I was going to be so beat up.
What happened to your face?
Oh, yo.
That's one of the best lines in the movie.
In the back of the car with that tape, I was like, this movie, I don't know where this movie's going. Like, I don't know what it was like in here, but when you pop up, I thought, like, oh, that was one of the, and you were in the back of the car. Like, I felt like also Wes cuts to you a lot, like, for your reactions.
Yeah.
Like, you're very grounded, and you are, like, witness to a lot of what's going on with these guys. Right. And I felt like, as an ensemble, all of you were really connected,
Yeah, absolutely.
And you guys had to do things that you don't usually do in this kind of film. You know what I mean? Like give a monologue and cry about not all these terrible things, but at the same time, beautiful things. And I felt like you guys gave each other room. Can you talk about what it was like on set, supporting your fellow actors and giving them the space to cry and do all these intimate things?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I'm a fan of his. You know what I mean? Like, and it was so corny because like
I'm a fan of you.
I appreciate that, but like you know how I am. Like I play my music in my trailer, like you know what I mean. And I just remember thinking, try not to be playing NLE when NLE pull up. You know what I mean? And I was like, I just wanted it to be like an organic thing and something that we could really bounce off, right?
Yeah.
But he had completely stripped the whole NLE off and just came as Bryson. And I remember the first day we really worked together was for stunt training, right?
Yeah.
And we had to like, go at it, but it was like a real thing where he asked questions. He was just like so locked in. He was like, this is my first movie. I got this question, this question, this question. What about this? And I was like, man, I'm gonna love this kid. Yeah, I know I am. And it came down to it where we was like, we got stunt doubles, but y'all get out the way. We got this. You know what I mean? And they biting their nails like, oh my God. We had so many bumps and bruises at the end of it, but it was like all love. And it was a thing where like, it was just constant support, but also kind of difficult, you know what I mean? Because naturally our energy is super playful, you know what I mean? So to like be getting some of these lines out and have to have the tears behind it and all of that was like, oh man, we gonna be here all day, you know what I mean? But yeah, he held it down for sure.
I think too, man, to piggyback off that, like I think the main thing you was asking about is just like the chemistry, the gel. And what was so dope about working with this guy right here, I told him, man, I was sitting literally in a theater that looks very similar to this. And when Straight Outta Compton came out, the Eazy-E scene, him laying on the bed, dying, I cried, shedded tears. I was like 12, 13. You know what I'm saying? I'm 22 now. People don't know how young I am, but like I was a badass little kid watching that.
Right.
And my mama, she like, I was trying to hide my tears because I was sitting beside my mom. So I get to crying and like I'm like trying to hide it, and she look at me. She like, I know your badass ain't in here crying. So like,
Mama Chop,
I told him, I was like, man, it's full circle to share this space with you. And I just gave him his flowers. I was like, you one of those guys, and to be in my first film with you is an honor. And this guy here, man, I think like I needed him. The way that he fed his lines, the way that he gave me the room to be able to come back. And even when I piggied off some stuff that wasn't on script and did things, he was like right there with it and caught it. I could never get the sense that you was even fearful to take the role because like you exceeded. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it was
you
real dope
definitely
sharing the
killed
space
it,
with
bro.
you, for real.
Yeah, you went crazy. Yeah.
And dovetailing off of them said, I'll be honest, I wasn't aware of you as a rapper yet. I come from the generation, it's a little, rapper.
Right.
And also, I come from a generation where a lot of rappers wanted to act, and a lot of them shouldn't have.
Right.
Let's be real. Let's be real. So I wasn't all the way. But then I saw your videos. I was like, okay, I like this dude's energy. I like this energy. But then working with this young man here, like he said, stripped. There was no, I'm NLE, blah, blah, blah. I was Bryson, here to work. And the professionalism that you brought, man, will carry you far. So much, though. I teach chess at a school in the Bronx. And they recently found out that I'm an actor. And then they recently found out that the movie's with them. And right? But one little hater in waiting was like, no, I bet he was real nice on set or something like that. And I stopped the class on guard and said, yeah, actually he was. He was professional. He was respectful. He was on time. He knew his lines. 99% of them, but that's all right. No, he was honest to God. And from the heart, it was inspiring to see this young man who has this whole other career strip himself and be humble on set. And I said to you that day, and I'll say it again, never lose that. Never lose that, because that will carry you far. And it was important that I said that to those kids, because I want them to know, no, you can be all those things.
Right.
You have other things to aspire to. So thank you for your professionalism
Thank
and
you.
just bringing you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Honest to God.
And I would not have known that was your first film. Like, you were effortless, and it was such an interesting and powerful performance. And I have a teenage son, and when he heard I was coming here tonight, him and his friends, they tried to get in. They were like, followed me here. I was like, you can't go. There's like RSVPs. You can't. But yes, I agree. Can you talk about a little bit how you made all of the stunts and the gunplay and all of that like grounded and natural. Like I believe you guys were running around that hotel and kicking in those doors because I think you and Tabitha, right? We don't have any ladies here tonight, but you guys had such a great dynamic as this mother and father. We didn't quite know what was going on, and we were talking in the green room when in that first scene when you don't want to kill the security guard. It was like the save the cat moment. I was like, oh no, I love this guy. He doesn't want to kill this crazy pimp security guard guy, and then he kills him and he feels bad. But like, can you talk about how you guys made all of that action look so believable and natural?
Well,
as an actor,
you know, as much as I want to say it was us, I really got to give that credit to Wes. You know what I mean? Because he's one of those people, like he's the first director I've ever worked with that also wanted to operate and hold the camera the entire time. You know what I mean? So it's like you want to bring 125% when you see your director who's pouring sweat, holding the camera saying, why don't you guys try this? Why don't you guys try this? You know what I mean? And like we're really moving and grooving in there. Like I feel sorry for that, pimp security guard person actually, because he actually got pistol whipped twice that day. Because
didn't he stab you?
He got hit for real.
Yeah,
too.
he got hit
for
he
real.
got hit twice. They was like, just hit him in the back. She was like, all right, bam. I was like, yeah. But I think Tabitha brought something very motherly. And shout out to her. She just actually had a baby. That's why she's not here tonight. So
yeah,
shout out to Jinx.
She was really great.
Congratulations to her.
Yeah.
But she had something that was very real and natural that I could attach myself to that just felt real. You know what I mean? And I could just pull these little bookmarks, like, because you never have the luxury of chronologically shooting a movie. You know what I mean? But you have these moments where I'm looking at her in her eyes going, well, it's either jail or heaven, hopefully, after this. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get to go home and see my family after this, So there were these moments where, like, I was like, damn, like, this is it. You know what I mean? If like the best option is for them two to leave together. Like I'm gonna die here today for sure. And it was just something that after we found those little gaps, we could just literally look at each other and be like, oh yeah, this is the wave right here.
You guys need a show or
Can I
something.
add something
I want
to
to
you?
watch you kick indoors like all day long.
Yeah, and she's actually super funny. Like if we do something else, it should be a comedy because
Yeah.
she's hilarious.
Can I add something too for the stunts? So, my makeup, it would take them like an hour to whoop my ass, but then they got it down. They got it to about 45 minutes. So, he's sitting in the chair getting all that makeup. And it was the last night when they were shooting the big fight.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, midnight, 1. And they say, you got to get on set, got to get on set. So I get over on set to find out they're learning the fight. Repeat, learning the fight. And I'm like, man, y'all brought me over here now. There's no way they're going to be ready for this. I got a strong hour. So I said, I'll come back in 40 minutes. Good thing I did. Because they learned that fight in pretty much under an hour.
Which one?
The last one.
Oh,
Yeah, the
wow.
pool scene.
Yeah.
And that fight had 4 chapters.
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And they learned that quickly.
Yeah.
So, wow, I got to give you all props.
It was a few times I hit Jason ass for real.
Good.
When I got punched in the
Good,
neck,
he
I was
beat me
like,
up.
listen, you done punched me a bunch of times all night. Just punch me in the neck. Just try not to hit me in the throat. Because faking it was just,
Yeah, it was
too hard to fake. So I was just like, just go for it. Wes gonna be mad, but just punch me in the throat.
It looked like a real fight in the pool too. It was ugly. It wasn't pretty. It was crazy.
Oh yeah, and we was both beat up and scratched up and scarred up, and we was
Really hit
every time we was like, I'm sorry. Yeah, like, nah, I'm good. That's that shit. I like that. And he'll come back and hit harder. I'm like, okay, we got it. All right, that would hurt a little
when
bit.
you would hit, really slamming our bodies on the concrete. Like when he was
Yeah.
throwing a
That one.
punch, like really
What
slamming.
was on? It was like some kind of chalk, weird white. Like what was that you were fighting on? It was like
Inside of a pool.
Yeah, it was just an old pool, but it was like, I'm sure there was like lead poison and asbestos.
You guys
all the
get
spicy
tested.
stuff.
Yeah, all
You
all
know?
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it was
Sir Shag would have loved that.
the theme of fatherhood, like you were saying, like when
Yeah.
you're coming down the corridor and we find out that you're not the dad,
Yeah.
and you're such a good actor, all of you are, and that you kind of accept that, and it's that message that you're
Yeah.
talking about you're there, you know what I mean? And then when you get killed, we came in at the end and everyone gasps when you finally, I was just again, I was like, no, you know what I mean? Like we
Yeah.
don't want you to, we don't want that to happen. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, it's crazy because I've been through a fair amount of baby mama drama in my real life. You know what I mean? Because my kids were born before I played Easy E and before I got my life together, and so she was always a big supporter of mine, right? But you would find the little haters that said things and did things that would mess up our communication. And one of those things was that my youngest daughter wasn't mine.
Oh,
Scariest feeling in the world. You know what I mean? Because after you, like, instantly you fall in love with a child. You know what I mean? Like, as much as you want to believe that you're building this relationship with it, that's not true. The moment you find out this woman is pregnant, you talking to her stomach, you like, you know what I mean? It's like this bond that's kind of unbreakable, So I'd use that.
yeah.
I used that. Them tears was coming from such a real place because I was like, man, because I remember like when we were in the room, actually, when I'm like screaming at Dream, she was like, I need more. Do you need me to get the little Vaseline stick for you or whatever? Like, I need more. You should be crying right now. And I was like,
Wait, who was saying that?
Dream. She was just like messing with me that
okay.
night. Like, I need more. I need more out of you. But then when we watched the film, she was like, I had no idea. Because I did that scene without her. Where I walk out and it's like all hitting me. And I was like, yeah, I definitely didn't want to do that in front of you. You know what I mean? But it came from such a real place because the way we love our daughters,
Say it again.
Man.
it gets me emotional just thinking about it. You know what I mean? But it was a hard, scary place to go, but it was something that was kind of like I didn't have to search far to find what that feeling was like. You know what I mean? So, thank God that I went through that, but oof.
And I
You
think
could
what's
feel
so
it in
night.
the movie, and let's give it up
Tough
for
night.
these guys. They
Yeah,
did such a
man.
good
Tough
job.
night.
I
like
think
also-
too, man, what's so dope about what he just said was like how everyone, like I feel like everyone in the film had a moment to where they had to pull a scenario that's genuinely like has happened either to them or they've seen or they've heard and really like channel it. That happened a lot of times on set.
Yeah,
And,
for sure.
this is my first time hearing that story. But Dream was sharing stories about how she was like kind of afraid of parenthood just for like reasons of that nature, and like full circle to come around. Now she has a daughter. I feel like God was just placing her at a place, putting her in alignment with this film, and now she's literally at home right now with her daughter,
Baby
and she
strapped to her
plays a
chest.
mom. Like in a film, everything was like just so perfectly put together, man. And the daughter, I have a daughter, 4-year-old Clover. She has my heart to the fullest extent. I couldn't imagine her coming across a King David. So I made sure to play King David as best as I could.
You did.
You know.
You did.
Yeah, you killed it, bro.
Any advice for actors? I think there are a few actors out here. I'm just totally joking. But any advice for actors?
Let's start down there. He got the game. This guy down here got it together.
Don't stop learning.
Mm.
You never have learned enough. When you're working on your craft. Oh, this was one thing I would say technically I learned. Don't memorize how you're going to say your lines.
Yeah.
Don't do that. It's the death of acting. I wish somebody had told me that a long time ago because there was a habit I used to do. Don't memorize how. Just know what it is you want to say. Because then it can come out any old way it needs to in the moment. Because when you're acting from a play that's up in your head, that's not life.
Right.
And we never know how we're going to say the ish we're going to say until it's time to say it.
I'm performing.
That's a real technical thing. But never stop learning. Practice with friends. Film your own stuff if you can. Get used to watching yourself because you have to get used to being comfortable with yourself. Because how long was it before you got comfortable watching yourself?
I'm still not comfortable.
Still
watching
not
myself.
comfortable.
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
not comfortable.
There's still
watching
things that
myself,
we
yeah.
go, I would have done that better. I could have done that better. I could have had that moment again. But, at the same time, give yourself grace. And have fun. That's another thing. Have fun. Because even in doing that kind of scene, there's a cathartic release to that.
Absolutely.
Right? And when you're auditioning, have fun. Because audition, it takes the, gotta get the job. Nah. Have fun. That comes through more than anything else you will do, that you're enjoying it. And we'll enjoy you if you're enjoying it.
That's very true. That's very true. Oh.
My book is sold in the lobby. If anyone is interested.
He'll be signing copies for the first 20 people. Any other tips or advice?
No, just to kind of pick up where he left off, keep living. You know, I remember I used to have these moments. Why, God? Why me? You know, and then I'm looking across from somebody, and they're like, Jason, where do you find the pain? Well, nigga, my light's been off a couple times. You know what I mean? I can think about some shit that maybe, you know, so never stop living, you know? And I feel like a good actor acts every day. You know, that's one thing I do. Like, if I can go to a random restaurant and all of a sudden I'm a British man. You know what I mean? How you doing? You know, do you have any recommendations?
We used to do that all the time, right?
I do that all the time. You know what I mean? I feel like it's a life hack, isn't it? You know what I mean? So I'm working on it. But besides, they're stealing all our jobs. So maybe I'll just pretend to be British. You know what I mean?
You're going to get that Marvel movie then, that way.
exactly.
If you pretend to be British, you'll get the Marvel movie.
Man, I always say keep God first, bro. They touched on all the things that, you know, that the actor would need from attributes wise, but I think sometimes we get lost in like just keeping God first, having faith in the journey. You know, I remember I was telling them, I had a few interviews earlier. I was saying how I was doing auditioning tapes, and I was sending them, and I was sending them off, and I'm thinking like, oh, I'm for sure gonna get that role. I didn't get the role. I remember doing a role for young Mike Tyson. I had the list. I was like, I want to fucking eat your heart out. You know,
It's pretty good,
I just wanna
actually.
eat
It's
his
pretty
fuck
good.
you, white boy. Like I had it perfectly down. Like I thought I had it perfect. I was like, yeah, they gonna look at that and be like, yeah, I want him as young Mike. And they ain't called my ass. You feel me? So it's like, you know, I got a little bit down because I felt I was putting 110 in,
Yeah.
and I wasn't getting what I thought I was putting in. And fast forward, I was like 6 auditions in, no call, no response. And Wes reached out to my mother, who he went to school with, and said, I want your son to act in my movie. And okay, what he needs to do, just show up, no audition tape. He saw it in me. He knew it was in me. And I think like, you know, he didn't have any anxieties of me on set. He like knew I was built for it, and I think I kind of exceeded his expectations a little bit
That's
more.
a fact,
for
though.
real.
That's a fact. I think you
So-
caught everybody off guard, bro. Like you really took it there. I appreciate you
I
for that.
appreciate
I-
that.
Isn't that interesting though? Like, yes,
Sure.
give it up. As you're saying, right? A lot of us in this room have that experience where you go on tape and you're like, I did the lisp and I'm Mike Tyson, and you don't get the job and you're really depressed. And then the way that a career evolves is someone calls out of the blue, and it happens in the least expected way, and you have to embrace it and go with it, because sometimes it's not it's like you have to do the work. You've got to constantly learn and get better. But sometimes it's that call that comes out of the blue. Let's give it up for these actors. Where can we see the film? When's it coming out?
Black Heat will be in theaters all across the U.S. on the 28th. So grab a friend, tell a friend. Yes,
Give it
sir.
up for this amazing cast.